kind of New Year is this? There's no champagne, there are no streamers,
Right.
no old acquaintance being forgot. Quite to the contrary, in fact. Why do the Jews do all this moping around the time of New Year, and where do we find this in the Torah, in the Bible? Where's the in the index? I didn't find Rosh Hashanah.
Correct. The phrase Rosh Hashanah doesn't appear. I'm not the kind of person, like I have relatives who actually know the whole Chumash. It's like an open book in front of me.
The Pentateuch, the 5 books of Moses.
Yes, the 5 books of Moses. Right. So I have not. I'm not one of those people who can recite verbatim passage after passage from the Bible, but
we're deeply ashamed of you for that reason.
Right, of course. But based on my as a friend of mine likes to say, so I have a friend who I'll give him a shout out. He's history courses on Twitter, Abraham Ash, and someone once asked him on there, I think it was a Christian fellow, something about something relating to the importance of the Bible in Judaism. And he's like, it's not really our main book. We're really more about the Talmud. And I was like, Avram, you're basically right. We wouldn't say that because ultimately it is the literal written divine word, but most of our, my study time is focused on the ancillary literature like the Talmud.
In other words, he said the part you're not supposed to say.
Yeah, he's good at that. He's good at that. And so follow him. He's cool. But anyway, so the only reference, the phrase Rosh Hashanah appears really, really late in the Bible. It's in the prophets, in the prophet Ezekiel, Yecheskel, and it doesn't seem to, based contextually, it does not seem to refer to what we call Rosh Hashanah. By the way, the phrase Rosh Hashanah literally means the head of the year. Rosh Hashanah. So you'll hear my father and myself, we're using, because we're Ashkenazic Jews from a fairly traditional, in my father's case, ethnically very traditional, and in my case also because I came up in a yeshiva environment, which is very, very uber conservative. So we don't use the modern Hebrew pronunciation. We'll use the what's called the Ashkenazi pronunciation. So we'll say something like Rosh Hashanah, which is grammatically a nightmare, but it's actually the way that Jews said those words for, at some point over the centuries, it blended into that grammatical nightmare. But what it means is Rosh Hashanah, right? It's the head of the year. It's the beginning of the year. And so it doesn't seem like that's what the prophet's referring to there based on the context clues. And what's very interesting is that in an agrarian society, which is what the ancient Israelites were, you might think that the Rosh Hashanah maybe is the season in which you plant or the season in which you harvest. But Rosh Hashanah actually really isn't that. It kind of falls in between. It's a little bit in advance of the holiday of Sukkot, which is the end of the farming season. Right? It's when you go inside. It comes right before the winter. So what we're actually kind of doing is we're really closing out the year at Rosh Hashanah. But in the Torah, in
other words, in contradistinction to the name, which suggests
the beginning of the year, we're actually we're kind of closing out the year. And so you mentioned, where's the party? So we do have a Rosh Hashanah, which is a party, right? And there's a Mishnah. The Mishnah is, I mentioned the Gemara before, the Talmud, which is what I spend most of my day working on. But the Mishnah is actually the core text around which the Talmud is built. So we have the Torah, we have the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses. And on that, there's the Mishnah, which is this very concise and compressed corpus. That was a completely inadvertent alliteration. Concise and compressed corpus of quotations and almost descriptions of disputes. And it's not always disputes. That's a stereotype. Sometimes it's just straight facts from which we derive what we call the oral Torah. Now it's funny because we're talking about a text. It's books on my shelf, right? But there was a time up until, really in a certain sense, still, but up until about 2,000 years ago, when the only way you could access these teachings was by memorizing them at the feet of a master, and that would be something that you would do as a child, and then if you were intellectually gifted, you'd know that corpus, and then if you had the ability or the wealth or whatever to continue down that path, you would engage in the practice which we call Gemara or Talmud, which is the practice of dissecting, of figuring out these cryptic, compressed statements and what are they really about. And it is something you can spend your entire life, multiple lifetimes, doing. It is a massive, massive corpus. So when the Mishnah, there's a tractate of the Mishnah which is called Rosh Hashanah. And it is, to my knowledge, the first description of Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah, because it's all about Rosh Hashanah. And it opens by saying there's actually 4 Rosh Hashanahs, Arba Rosh Hashanah.